Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Sunday, May 5th, 2024, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Now Mind You podcast, the Cinco de Mayo episode. If you celebrate, I hope you're enjoying the day. If you don't celebrate, I hope you're enjoying your Sunday, or at least for you guys, it'll be Monday regardless. This, of course, is episode 112, Combat. I am your host. I'm TJ. Bryce had a conflict, and as I mentioned in the manga episode, Matt is overseas. So today, I'm going to give you guys a brief high-level overview of two combat events that took place last night on May 4th. May the 4th be with you. Um, on the one end, on boxing, we had Canelo Alvarez versus Jaime Munguia, right? And then on the MMA tip, we had UFC 301 Pantoja versus Erceg. So, as you know, we usually take picks, and actually, we'll go over our picks for the next fight night, which will be UFC Fight Night, Lewis versus Nascimento. But without further ado, let's just get into it. So, on the boxing side, like I said, we had Canelo Alvarez versus, well, Saul Canelo Alvarez versus Jaime Munguia. I'd like to cover just the actual main event, which was Canelo Alvarez versus Jaime Munguia, but I'd also like to talk about one of the fights on the undercard, which I believe was Brandon Figueroa versus Jesse Magdaleno. That fight was insane. Brandon Figueroa is a switch hitter. This is what I'm going to say. The ending was Brandon Figueroa stopping Jesse Magdaleno, and the way the stoppage went down, Jesse Magdaleno had no choice even but to acknowledge it. It was like class and sportsmanship all around. But the body shot that Brandon Figueroa hit on Jesse Magdaleno, like the sound, you had to like watch it, but the sound the impact made was like, oh, this man hit him square on the liver. Like, it was one of those like, bah! Then delay, like Jesse Magdaleno actually made a sound. This man was in pain, like legs kicking out and everything. It was just like, ooh. And what was even crazier was that it was a buzzer beater, like literally at the buzzer, body shot, bow. They called the roundup. Like the buzzer went off, round was over, but they're like, you know what? There's no point in continuing this. That's how crazy that body shot was. Um, Canelo versus Munguia. I think it was way more competitive. Well, as an amateur, and I don't really follow like the boxing media, boxing news that much, but going in, I was like, all right, Canelo's gonna dominate. Maybe this won't even be that competitive because Canelo is that dude, right? Um, Jaime Munguia gave him work. Like I mean, if you look at the scorecards, Canelo was easily kind of like winning round after round. Of course, it was a 10-8 round. I believe it was round four when Canelo dropped Alvarez with the uppercut to the hook. He dropped out. Canelo dropped Alvarez. Canelo dropped Munguia with the uppercut to the hook, and it just went from there. I honestly saw a few instances of Canelo even just like kind of wobbling Munguia a few times, but one thing I did notice, I mean, obviously there's a size discrepancy between Munguia and Canelo. Canelo maintained a very high guard versus Munguia, who has a tendency to kind of keep his hands down. Now, in terms of punch speed, like Munguia ain't no slouch. However, like it just looked like Canelo was delivering more damage and having more of the cleaner strikes. With that being said, Canelo had that like unanimous decision victory, and I believe he is now the undisputed champ. Switching over to the MMA side of things, right? We're talking, of course, about UFC 301 Pantoja versus Erceg. So let me pull up I mean, if you guys were following along on Instagram last night, I was posting up my picks and the aftermath online. But I only got two out of the five right on the main card, the main event, right? We'll go over those right now. Hold on, let me just pull up my story right quick. Well, I don't even need to pull up the story. Let me just pull up my notes. I have my notes app open. Sorry, y'all. Dead air. Dead air. All right, so TJ UFC 301 pick. So for Bohalio versus Craig, I had Bohalio. which panned out for Pereira versus Potieria. I had Potieria Ihor. For Anthony Smith versus Vitor Petrino, I had Petrino. For Jonathan Martinez versus Jose Aldo, I had Jonathan Martinez. So, aside from Bajalio, so far I'm 1 out of 4, right? And then, of course, for Pantoja versus Erceg, I had Pantoja. So I had 2 out of the 5, right? But let's get into these fights right quick. All right. We started off with the opener, which was Caio Borralho versus Paul Craig. This was Paul Craig's, I think, second or third outing at middleweight. I could be wrong because he was light heavy at some point, but he just recently transitioned over to middleweight. Then Caio Borralho, he's been on somewhat of a killer of a streak, representing Fight Nerds. And I've been saying this since we've been following this dude's like debut and since we've been following his debut in the UFC, like Caio Borralho has the makings of a star. Anytime you have an international fighter, well, I shouldn't say international fighter, but a non-American fighter, who for one represents a different country and also speaks English super well, you got the makings of a superstar. You have that in Caio Borralho. And let me tell you something. Paul Craig towers over this man. But Caio Borralho said that doesn't make a difference. And he ended up getting a performance of the night bonus. He got that 50K bonus, right? Immediately, Caio says, I don't respect any form of distance manager here. I'm going to get in your face. You're going to get these jabs and they're going to rock you back. Now, I do agree with some of the commentary made by Dean Lister, DC, Paul Felder, and John Anik in terms of like maybe Caio was lunging in a little bit too hard on some of his jabs. Like if he sat on him a little bit, he probably could have dropped Paul Craig earlier. But yeah, there were a few instances where he was like kind of stunning Paul Craig a little bit, shutting him down, smothering him. Paul Craig had some good opportunities with his like body kicks, but ultimately, it's like anytime Borralho managed to take Paul Craig down or get Paul Craig to sit on his butt, it made like zero difference because Borralho was like, I'm not going to engage with you. I know how good you are at jiu-jitsu, which is crazy to think because Borralho is no slouch, but Paul Craig's jiu-jitsu is the shit. Remember, he broke Jamal Hill's arm, right? But Borralho refused to engage. Paul Craig kept getting stood up, and the fight would continue. Then in round two, early into round two, like Borralho hit a combination, just dropped Paul Craig, like dropped him. It was a knockout finish. And hey, that Brazilian, that Brazilian rising star in Caio Borralho was even further. Next up, another 50K at middleweight. We had Michel Pereira versus Ihor Potieria. Now, maybe it's just something about that home field advantage, that home field buff, but we saw a return of the Michel Pereira of old. Not, I will say, not wild and crazy Michel Pereira, but look, it's like he wasted no time, got in Potieria's face, dropped him, did a backflip, landed on him with his shin, which could have technically speaking been an illegal knee. It's up for debate. And then when Potieria got back up, managed to cinch a guillotine, a standing guillotine on this dude that was so tight that even when Potieria tapped, he's like Pereira let go, and Potieria still went out unconscious. It was insane. I mean, like Michel Pereira is explosive as all hell. The man went on to like just breakdance and just hit some windmills as a form of celebration. Just like, yeah, yeah, problem, problem at middleweight. Oh, and the other thing I forgot to mention, like with this, from the last fight, Caio Borralho goes up in rank in the middleweight, right? And he respectfully called out Jared Cannonier. It's like, I don't know if you want that smoke, but it was a respectful call. There was no disrespect at all. Next up, light heavyweight, we had Anthony Smith versus Vitor Petrino. Bro, I don't even know, like, Anthony Smith won via submission, so it was decisive, but like Vitor Petrino made one of the mistakes you just don't make. Well, I could also see him assuming it's like, hey man, I got him in this big ass double leg. How is he not gonna let go of my neck? Like I can slam him right now. But then on the other hand, Anthony Smith is like, well, he slams me. I also have his head in a fucking guillotine. He's gonna smack his head and maybe knock himself out unconscious. Um, which is kind of what did and didn't happen. So Petrino goes in for this Godzilla double leg. Anthony Smith is like, that's crazy. Cinches this crazy guillotine. This is like 2 minutes into round, or like a minute and some change into round one. Petrino decides to finish the double leg with almost kind of like a slam. And Anthony Smith is like, okay, well, I'm tightening this. And he got the tap and won in round one. Um, Next up, we had at bantamweight Jose Aldo versus Jonathan Martinez. It went the distance, and it was like man, Jose Aldo was in good form. It was just in good form. Like he was talking about retirement. He actually took a pause, came back into it. It's like he didn't even miss a day. Um, Jonathan Martinez, man, it's like he had been on a streak, but it's like he couldn't let his hands go the way he wanted to. And I wonder if it's just a consequence of the sheer uh anxiety or gravity of the moment. It's like, man, I'm fighting Jose Aldo. I'm fighting Jose Aldo right now. So I wonder if the pressure of the moment is what got to him because he just couldn't get his shit off the way he wanted to. It was a crazy co-main event. Like, good on Jose Aldo. I don't think this is the end of Jonathan Martinez's story by any means. I'm just like, I think if they were to rematch, I can see Jonathan Martinez doing a lot better. I feel like he just got into his head a little bit too much because it was Jose Aldo in front of him. Main event time, baby. We had Alexandre Pantoja versus Steve Erceg. Bro, this I think Pantoja won. I think Erceg showed that for one, uh he is no slouch. He is that dude. Because he split Pantoja's wig open and he is a sniper with his hands. Bro, I literally thought like, and shout out to Pantoja's chin, but I literally thought at some points like, hey, he might get caught with that left hook because Erceg has been sniping it since like round one. But Pantoja is like, they call him a pressure fighter, but he's more of like that marauder, bro. He gets all up in your face, like you're gonna get these hands, and his speed is nothing to be scoffed at, too. This was like a flyweight battle. I've said this before. I'm pretty sure I said this last broadcast too, but it's like a flyweight battle is almost the next best thing to watching an anime battle, like think Dragon Ball Z, because these dudes are fast and they hurt each other like it's insane. But uh Erceg, I mean, if he, because this was a pretty tough weight cut for him, is what they said. So I don't know how long he wants to stay in flyweight. I could see him maybe going up to bantam. Maybe that'll be a little bit easier for him. But he could also run into the issue where it's like he's the smallest dude in bantamweight, right? But Erceg, man, he has the caliber. He has the ability to hang in there. Like this fight went the distance. They both did a significant amount of damage. Pantoja won. And it was an exciting fight to watch. But good on Pantoja because I believe this was this his first or second title defense? Let me double check y'all just to make sure I don't mess up the facts right quick. Yes, this was his second title defense. So hey, 3x flyweight champ. Shout out Pantoja. But that was UFC 301. If I had to say what my favorite fight was on that card, I'm gonna have to go with Bohalio versus Craig. Something about that just spoke to me. And it was like, one of my early picks, and it was one that I got like 100% right. You can never bet against a Brazilian buff, a Brazilian fighter fighting in Brazil. That just gives them like plus 52 strength. You can never bet against that. Um, with that, let me switch over to picks for UFC Fight Night, Lewis versus Nascimento. Let me also get my notes ready. Let me go utilities, notes. All right. Let's go in here. Let's create a new note. So this is for TJ picks Lewis versus Nascimento. All right, here we go. So let's start with the opener of the main card. We got heavyweight. We got Salsa Boy versus Robelis Despagne. It's a Cuban fighter, it would seem. Um, Look, man, that's like some Latin on Latin violence. I haven't seen Robelis before, so I'm gonna go with Salsa Boy. Plus, Salsa Boy throws punches like they're fastballs, and those things look like they hurt. But if he still doesn't know how to check kicks, I'm gonna have to give it to Robelis. Um, but I'm gonna stay solid. I'm gonna stand firm. I'm gonna say Salsa Boy. At featherweight, we have Sean Woodson versus Alex Caceres. Now, considering that Caceres is ranked and Woodson isn't, this is obviously Woodson trying to jump up into the rankings a little bit there. But I'm gonna go with Bruce Leroy. Do not bet against Alex Caceres. He's still fighting for a reason. Versus Sean Woodson, I'm gonna go Caceres. All right. Then after that, Diego Ferreira versus Mateusz Rebecki. I hope I'm not butchering the names too bad. I'm not super familiar with either fighter. This is happening in St. Louis. You know what? This is tough. I mean, I'm not familiar with either fighter, but I'm just going with Fajeda. Then Alonzo Menefield versus Carlos Ulberg. Ooh, shit. I might look. This is I'm pretty sure was Ulberg the one who had the katana finisher that one fight? Man, but Alonzo Menefield is a menace. I'm gonna go Menefield. All right, and then co-main event we had Joaquin Buckley coming off of his big ass win. I think it was against Vicente Luque, right? That put him in the rankings for for welterweight. Versus Nursultan Ruziboev. Shit, man, that's somebody's name that ends in Ev, and they got the beard, no stash. Uh I'm gonna root for everybody black. I'm gonna go Buckley. And then finally, main event. We got Derek Lewis versus Rodrigo Nascimento. Uh, this isn't happening in Texas, so I'm gonna go Lewis. If it was happening in Texas, I'd be like, ooh, Nascimento. But since it's not happening in Texas, it's happening in St. Louis, I'm gonna go with Derek Lewis, y'all. All right, y'all. So this brings this episode to a conclusion. Thank you so much for listening. We should have the full crew next week. You can find the podcast on any podcast distribution platform. So that would be like Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, etc. If you're looking for the podcast on any social media, you will find it at Now Mind You Podcast. Well, not at Now Mind You Podcast. If you simply search for the Now Mind You Podcast, you'll be able to find it. And then, of course, if you're looking for the podcast on social media at Now Mind You Pod, that's NOWMINDYOUPOD. And of course, if you're looking for me on social media, you can find me on Instagram at Tuss4Skate. That's TUSS4_SKATE. If you're looking for the fellas, you can find Bryce at Ashe Onsa. That's AXE_ONCA. If you're looking for Matt Hambrick, you can find him on damn near everything at Matt Hambrick. That's MATTHAMBRIC. Thank you all so much for watching. Keep sharing, keep liking, and we will see you all next week. Peace.